You're listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and it's time for this week's Long Island News, the show that talks to newsmakers and other important people from Nassau and Suffolk that matter to Long Island and Long Islanders like you. So each week we'll have a conversation about issues that affect all of us. I live on Long Island just like you. I want to know more about the people making the big decisions that affect all of us. Well, today we're going to get an inside look at New York State politics and also look ahead to Election Day in November. I'd like to welcome for the first time to the show New York State Senator Patricia Canzoneri-Fitzpatrick. Ms. Canzoneri-Fitzpatrick is a Republican representing District 9 and is also running for re-election this year. She began her tenure in public service as a trustee in the village of Malvern in Nassau County. She then went on to become Malvern's police commissioner and fire commissioner, and also served as Malvern's deputy mayor and budget director. Ms. Canzoneri-Fitzpatrick, hello. Welcome to this week's Long Island News.
Thank you for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for coming. You've been busy in your political career. You've held quite a few jobs.
I have. I'm an attorney and a CPA. I have my own law practice. So I'm a small business owner, and I also have 4 children. So those are the things that really keep me busy. And I have been very involved in village politics. My dad's a former mayor, so it seemed like a logical thing for me to get involved in public service. And it's truly the honor of a lifetime to be a senator.
Well, tell us more about you. Besides the short bio I just read, what should we know more about you personally and professionally? As
a CPA, certainly I'm aware of numbers. I'm aware of finances. I'm aware of budgeting. And I tell everybody, running our own home with 4 kids, you have to have budgets. You have to have guidelines. You can't just spend wildly. And those are the things that I try to translate into my role as a senator. I've had my own small business as an attorney with my dad. We've been law partners for over 20 years. And so I understand the struggles that small businesses have with trying to keep up with payroll and rent and the expenses that run your business. One of the things that really got me involved in politics was to be a voice for common sense balance. And I did that at the village level. And then I'm doing it now in Albany because I do feel that we have some issues that needed attention, such as cashless bail and affordability. Every one of us going to the food store and filling up our gas tank has felt the pinch lately of increase in prices, inflation. And I think that we need some balance and common sense spending habits to balance out, the idea of what do we want, what do we need, and we need to meet in the middle so that we can keep life affordable for everybody here in New York State.
Yeah.
As a mom of 4 too, I think that I've seen firsthand what kids have gone through. And one of the things that I asked to be part of was the mental health committee. So I'm the ranking member on the mental health committee in the Senate. I have advocated very strongly for mental health counselors in schools because I do feel that changing the narrative about mental health and getting kids to understand that if you have a bellyache, you go to the doctor. Mm-hmm. Why not go to the doctor when you're feeling a little low and get the mental health that you need, mental health care. And I want to change the narrative to say that we want it to be mental wellness, that we all want to feel energetic and fit, because when our mental health is in order, we can go to work and be productive. We can be better parents. We can be better neighbors. We can get involved in our community. And I feel very strongly about that also. So there was a number of issues that really kind of put me in this role. And I've been very comfortable speaking out when I think things should change. And that's what it's been really very fun to do. But I feel like I'm trying to make a difference.
Right. You mentioned, and this is a big one, and I've had quite a few guests, and we've got into this discussion about consumer protections. That's a biggie. I mean, and you talk about grocery stores, and people have been trying to nail down exactly where this price increase happened. And it seems that the conversation now is to the point where basically businesses, supermarkets just decided to start raising prices. Besides, I mean, and this happened a long time ago. I went to buy 16 ounces of coffee and realized it was only 10, but I was paying the same price. So that's happened a lot of products. I see cookies, now they're laid out next to each other with an inch and a half of plastic in between them. So now you get 6 cookies and they still call it a box of cookies. Things like that. But the big one was, we all have cell phones. Everybody's got one. Did you ever read the terms and conditions when you got your cell phone? Right, you laugh. And everybody does. Nobody reads them. And it's common knowledge that nobody reads them. Why do we let them keep printing them? Why do we let ourselves constantly fall into this trap? And there was just a very good example. Disney had a case. A woman from, I think she was from Long Island, passed away in a restaurant from eating. She had a reaction to something she ate, and she passed away. Her husband had a case against Disney, and in the interim, he apparently signed up for Disney Plus. And by signing up for Disney Plus, the company assumed or felt like they wanted to push the idea that he was no longer protected. He couldn't go to court anymore. He had to go to an arbitrator of their choice. And that included the case of his wife's, in parentheses, wrongful death on a Disney property. I don't know. Should he have read the terms and conditions better? You know what I mean?
Well, I am on the Consumer Protection Committee.
Oh, I know.
I'm the ranking member, and there are so many things that need attention.
Yeah.
That scenario that you just described is horrendous.
Really?
And I think that the implications of that are really terrible. Now, Disney's operating in Florida. I can't do much about Florida law,
No, right.
but to the extent that we can control certain things in New York State, we have been doing things, even packaging vape products, even packaging things that look like they're candy, but they're really products that are harmful to our youth. Those are the kinds of things that we're chipping away at on that committee. And but certainly I agree with you that there's a lot of pitfalls for the unwary, and there are a lot of pitfalls for our elderly. So one of the things I recently did was I've done a couple of these now, scam prevention seminars.
Great.
To bring awareness to people. Unfortunately, we've heard of the stories where someone gets the phone call, "Oh, hi, Grandma, son, and can you meet this person in a parking lot with $5,000 worth of Target gift cards, and they're going to help me get out of jail." These scenarios seem so ridiculous to us, but when you're calling an elderly grandson or granddaughter, it motivates these people to do these things. And we are trying to bring awareness. My last scam prevention seminar, we had over 35 seniors there, and it was a great turnout. We have to keep talking about it.
Right.
We have to get those things out.
Right.
Consumer protection is something that we need attention to be drawn to, the fine print on those kinds of things, that we can't be hiding that kind of detrimental legal ramifications in the fine print that no one's reading. Yeah,
and sometimes in these cases, it's not necessarily just the company that's getting away with murder. One of the ideas is that Congress on a national level is supposed to protect us. They're supposed to be the buffer between us and companies, and yet we've got 35% credit card interest. When I was a kid, that was called usury, and we don't use that word anymore because there apparently is no such thing. There are quite a few things. Homeowners on Long Island everyone's screaming about the price of houses. A guy just sold his house next to me for something like $780,000. But it's also become quite evident that big hedge funds are competing with individual families to buy residential homes. They shouldn't be allowed to be in that business, and yet they are. And this is why real estate is going through the roof. It's not necessarily worth more, but it's assessed greater as every house value goes up. What does that say? People wonder why people leave Long Island. But my first reaction to that is, no, you don't. You don't wonder. You know exactly why. And this seems to be the MO. People make their money in New York and they spend it somewhere else. So we expect that whole generation to just flow through Long Island and then go somewhere else. And
Bill, you're hitting on a very important issue, because one of the things that I keep telling people is you've got to follow the money, right? So, for instance, we had a squatter problem, And it's really more so in the city. But what it does, so think about it. If in Albany we tax people, it gets passed down to the consumer, right? Mm-hmm. And it gets passed down to the building trade. And then it's passed down because the person that's building that home and trying to buy the products for that home, their prices keep going up and up and up. So what do? They raise the rent.
Right.
They raise the price that they sell it to someone. So what I keep thinking is that we need to do better in Albany with reducing our spending, because it just is trickling down and everybody leaves. And if we don't get those spending things under control as a government, it just is going to continue to force the out-migration of more and more people. And kids like my 4 children are never going to.
What age group
and I agree.
What age group are your 4 kids in now?
So my oldest is 25 and my youngest is 17.
Wow.
So, senior in high school to someone who's, out of school. Right. But the price is here. I don't know how a young couple starting out is affording a house. No. Especially with the interest rates going up. I think they've kind of stabilized. I think they might be coming down, but we don't know. But how does anybody commit for that 30-year process?
First of all, if this young couple had just graduated from college, they're also carrying $100,000 worth of debt for 2 students. And that precludes home buying right away. As soon as someone goes to look at their credit report, they're going to say, oh, by the way, you owe a lot of money, so we're not going to give you a mortgage. It is. It's very scary. But this, you're listening to this week's Long Island News on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and today we're talking to New York State Senator Patricia Canzoneri-Fitzpatrick. Ms. Canzoneri-Fitzpatrick is a Republican representing District 9 and is also running for re-election this year. Yeah.
So, Bill, if we could continue on the affordability thing, one of the things that I was really outspoken about was trying to figure out, we're giving New York City in this year's budget, we gave them $2 billion to help with the migrant crisis. And that is a self-created problem by New York City, allowing the doors to be open to any migrants that want to come in. And what are these people doing? They're getting housing, clothing, gift cards, and who's paying for it? You and me and all the other hardworking individuals. I'm all for immigration that's legal. My grandparents immigrated from Sicily, and that's what our country is built on. That's not the problem. The problem is when people come in, they don't want to be responsible for themselves and they want handouts, and we continue to enable them. Because we gave $2.4 billion this year, and I think the number was $1.4 billion last year. So I think the total between the 2 years was $4.3 billion of statewide tax money went to New York City migrants. And that's a tremendous amount of money that could have gone to school funding, that could have gone to help small businesses, that could have gone to the housing. But instead, the people that are controlling Albany decided to spend that money in that manner. And I objected to it. I was overruled. But outlandish spending that we can't sustain.
Well, I mean, we also have to get to the root of the problem. We did have a border bill that got scuttled. We all remember that, and it's pretty common knowledge that the MAGA Republicans decided they didn't want that bill. And again, you have the far ends of the political spectrum seem to be wagging the dog by the tail. It's funny because when I look at Republicans seem to be more afraid of other Republicans than they are of Democrats. I get this sense that, I better vote this way or I'm going to be a pariah, and we all saw what happened to Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger as they voiced their opinions. Neither one of them is any longer in politics. Well, maybe politically, but they don't hold office now for that reason.
Well, you know what? I would submit to you that at the state level, the moderate Democrats are very afraid of the progressive Democrats.
I think we all are.
The socialists, the ones that are really pushing socialism.
You know what? Don't even use those terms because people don't understand them. We use terms like communism and capitalism and socialism, and everyone hears a different word when we say that. So we have to We have to really say what we mean. You know, George Carlin said it. The 50th percentile is the regular guy in the street, and he's not very bright. And the half of the population is below him.
Oh.
So rather than scoff and say, you know, these are things that point to us too, because we failed in education. Kids don't even know how a bill is made. I don't even know if they've ever read the Constitution or what they know about the Declaration of Independence. Those things didn't just happen. Conscientious teachers will make sure their students know those things, but the test materials may not. And in the last few years, 20 years, we've been teaching to the test. We're only interested in getting the kid to get the right answer for the question that's on the test. The other 10 things that it touches, we bypass because we're not going to be responsible for those. And that's reflective in the whole society.
That's a disservice to our children.
It
absolutely.
Certainly is.
I can't tell you how many people don't even know how many senators we have in New York State or that we have a Senate and Assembly. And that's in our yep. These people are hopefully voting for me. They don't even know what I do for them.
Nope.
And that's something that I'm constantly educating people. There's 63 senators. There's 150 assembly people. Mm-hmm. And we determine how your income taxes are spent, right? So New York State taxes you on your income tax return. That's where we get our funding for the budget primarily, mm-hmm. right? I don't get to decide how your real estate taxes are. Your school taxes go to your school district. Town of Hempstead might collect some tax from you. A local municipality such as an incorporated village might get it. Right. Nassau County might get a little bit for your police coverage. But the majority of what we do up in Albany is the income tax that everybody pays. Right. We decide how that's spent.
Right.
So if we need more money, your income taxes on your income tax return go up.
Right.
That's where there's a direct impact. Right. So when people tell me, I didn't get as much money on my tax return this year, your refund went down because I needed more money in Albany to support the spending.
Right. So they decide to spend without any money in the bank and just hope it comes in when it's time. Yeah, we can't run our houses like that. You know, I've always said if it was up to me, I would go out into the middle of the country and find housewives who run a household on $50,000 a year or less and put them in Congress because they're the geniuses.
Yep.
You know, to be able to squeeze out, you've got 4 kids. I'm preaching to the choir here, you go back to school day and I looked at some of what some people spent for one kid with the backpack, some new clothes, the books, and it's upwards of $800 or something. I don't ever remember my parents having to do that. But then again, I came from the generation too where we covered our books with old newspaper, with old shopping bags.
Brown paper shopping bags.
Bingo. And
we were the first recyclers of anybody, right?
Bingo. And they were great because I could draw on that thing all year. While I wasn't listening.
And those sometimes went in the garbage pail too. Yeah. Those were our garbage bags. They covered our school
everything.
Books. And I have to tell you, I was one of 6 kids. There was a lot of hand-me-downs in my house. And I have 3 girls, so I constantly recycled my clothes.
Right, and you keep that in mind. Right, and you keep that in mind when you're doing it. That's just smart,
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see. Okay, let's talk to some issues now. We talked about the migrant and the immigration thing, and it's such a sad thing that it's been so politicized. I feel for people who genuinely want to come to this country and contribute and don't have any, black clouds in their history or whatever. They simply just want a better life. We should try and think of those people more often because not everyone coming across the border is a criminal and a rapist and
Correct.
A murderer. Although
Absolutely.
Many times that's how we view that. Somebody else has come. Well, wait a minute. And we should go back and watch some of those old movies from Ellis Island. And and a lot of them didn't get treated much better, but there was a system and there was a way to do it and people knew what it was.
Yeah.
And let's see. Let's talk about, public safety. Now we've had Nassau County Commissioner of Police Patrick Ryder here many times, and he's always said that Nassau County is one of, if not the safest county in the state. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that's a tribute to his work as police commissioner. Pat Ryder has done a fantastic job. And I would say that our county executive, Bruce Blakeman, has given him the tools to have an effective police department. I think something to be said about government and the police working together to protect us. I will say that cashless bail has had a difficult effect on crime. One of the things I advocated for was giving back judges discretion so that if an individual is before you, and maybe they've been before you 3 or 4 times for the same crime, maybe we should hold them on bail. And right now, the current cashless bail said there's a list of crimes, and unless you've committed one of those, I can't hold you. So the most egregious situation that I found so upsetting was out in Suffolk. There was that case where 2 individuals were arrested for dismembering, and they threw the body parts into the park, and they were found by children walking home from school.
Right.
They arrested these individuals, and that crime was not on the list of bailable offenses. Now, if that's not a dangerous person, I wouldn't want them behind me at the CVS or the store, or the food store, right?
But where did
where
did common sense go, though?
Common sense went out the window.
Yeah, well,
I will tell you that I argued that this bill should be put into place to give judges discretion. And I was told that the standard was too subjective. 49 states and the federal government allow a judge to consider the dangerousness of the defendant, but not in New York. And that I find upsetting, offensive, and it doesn't allow us to protect our individuals.
Right.
So, for instance, I'm sure you saw in the news, we put in, there was a Nassau County put into effect the mask law.
Right.
And they arrested an individual who had a 14-inch knife, who had gang connections, who was told to go out and commit a crime. They arrested him, and he was back out on bail. He's been here illegally since 2014. He lived in Levittown, but no true ties to Nassau County. And that's the kind of thing that I find frustrating, that the police investigated. They arrested a person who I wouldn't want walking down my street. Right. And they couldn't hold this person. So that's where
they didn't tell us the rest of that story, though. You know, all we heard in the media was that they caught a guy with a mask on, and the other thing was it wasn't the mask that brought their attention to him; it was the 14-inch knife, and that should have brought attention to him whether he had a mask on or not. The mask thing, I think,
They stopped him because he had the mask on, and then they observed the bulge in his pants. Yeah, and then once they saw the bulge in the pants, then they had the reasonable suspicion to actually pat him down. So I guess it was a series of steps. But yes, the fact that this guy couldn't be held on bail, that drove me bananas when I heard that.
That seems, I think a lot of us in the public would, maybe we give government and too much credit, because to not see, that's ridiculous. To have a guy that, the statement should say violent crime. And then anything that could go under that heading should be some, we said this when the law first came out on the show, we were talking about it. And that was my first question is if you're going to pass a law like this and not give judges any discretion, what do we need judges for? Why do we have them? You guys,
they're elected officials.
But you guys decided, not you guys, I'm not saying you, but lawmakers decided that they weren't important in the, and so let's just write, anybody that thinks they can write a law that's going to encompass every possibility. I mean, we've had discussions too on the show about unintended consequences and how many times laws are passed. And I asked lawmakers, is there a committee someplace that looks at these things, hopefully before the fact, but usually after the fact, to see what negatives could come from this great law you said you just passed? Right.
Right.
And a lot of
that's where, like, when we go through committees up in Albany, I do point out when I see something like you just said, you do really think about how this is going to affect somebody down the line, and is this really what you want? Maybe we could tweak it. And hopefully the sponsor of the legislation is open-minded to it. Sometimes they're not. Yeah. And that's where party politics, I think, should be set aside. Do what's best for the community and for the residents of our state. And that's what I try to do. I try to bring common sense types of answers, and hopefully we'll get, a little bit chipping away at that. Yeah, I think I've gotten a reputation that people know I'm not playing politics. I'm trying to get things done. Mm-hmm. And as I build those additional relationships, that's where I'm hoping that I can get more and more done each session.
Well, I thank you for that. You sound very level-headed to me. You know, this is one of the reasons I like interviewing people. I get to meet them and actually talk to the person, not just. And there's the other thing. I've told my audiences during election time, if you get a thing in your mail, if it's from party number one, they'll be telling you about party number two. And if it's from party number two, they'll be telling you about party number one. None of that stuff is worth anything. You take it from the mailbox and you throw it in the garbage and go and find out. Read, see for yourself. Anyone who listens to a character assassination from one side and takes that as gospel has really got to be kidding, But these are people who scream, do your research, and they think a Wikipedia article is their research. I was telling somebody the other day, I only learned how to research in graduate school. You don't really learn it before that, not to that extent. And to realize that a fact has a backup and to find that backup and say, this is where. But today we're so divided we can't even agree on facts. That's scary.
And that's really unfortunate. I don't remember feeling that way when I was younger, that I couldn't say I was a Republican and not feel like, people, categorize you, right? Not every Republican wants a gun in their home. Not every Republican is against abortion. Right. There are so many different nuances to candidates that having a discussion like this is so important, because you get to see that I'm not about party politics. Yes, I'm a Republican. I'm very conservative in my spending. We got to figure out how to get spending under control. And that's just, I think, because of where I came from. I was a family of 6 kids. My mom and dad couldn't give us everything because they just had a limited income. My mom stayed home. So you kind of grow up with that way of turn off the lights when you're not in the room, right? And if that translates into your life later on, yes, I'm conservative fiscally, but am I all about, trying to help those that are in need?
No. There you go.
Yes, that's who I am as a person.
That's the thing I look at. When I look at candidates, Mr. Rogers' mother told him that when he got upset watching the news. And she said, just look for the helpers. Look for the helpers. And it was people who want to do things for people. And then there are people who just want to do things to people. And it gets pretty clear. But I really want to thank you for coming by today. We could talk for another 2.5 hours, and I'd love to.
I know, I could tell.
Anytime you want to. Give us a call at the station. And
thank you so much, Bill, for your help. I really appreciate your time and getting to know you too.
Well, good luck in the election too. That's coming. What do we got? 100 days? Well, maybe a little
60.
Less. 60. Well,
60.
and
right.
22 minutes and 33 seconds.
and counting. All right. Have a great day. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye now.
Well, my guest today has been New York State Senator Patricia Canzoneri-Fitzpatrick. But anyway, the clock on the wall says it's time for this week's Long Island News to get on out of here. I'm Bill McIntyre. Remember, you can listen to us by searching for this week's Long Island News wherever you listen to podcasts. And we're right here every Friday on the radio at 3 p.m. on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.